Hello and welcome to another epic rant, the crazy series where I rant about things that I love, to you people that may or may not be interested. Today, it's no surprise, but we are doing a revisit to Final Fantasy VII Remake. It might be a bit confusing, seeing as I've already done a epic rant to Final Fantasy VII, but that was very spoiler free and goes into basically my upbringing with Final Fantasy and how I got into the series. This epic rant will be about Final Fantasy VII Remake in its entirety and will be full of spoilers. So if you don't want to get this game spoiled for you and you want to play it for yourself, I suggest you go out and buy it and play it and then come back. Or if you can't afford it at this moment in time, wait until you can, buy it, complete it, then come back to this video. It's no detriment. This is just basically going to be explaining certain elements in the game that I find fantastic and what will be fantastic going forward. Okay, so as I said, there will be spoilers in this epic rant. What I want to basically do with this epic rant is just promote again why I see this game as the best game I ever played, and I have a repertoire of games that I completely adore and love, but this game has blew them all out of the water. As well as I want to explain and clarify why this game is probably the best in its, on the current generation, for the current generation of consoles. So why am I coming back to Final Fantasy VII Remake? I've recently been watching, I think I briefly explained that I've been watching Brianna White, or Strange Rebel Gaming on Twitch, who is the voice actress of Aerith, who you can see on the screen right now. Not her, Aerith obviously. And I'm just engrossed in, again, obviously this game that I love, as well as Brianna's explanation into the character and into what certain things mean, what it meant to her, and what it means in the context of the game, and it basically gets my hype up to talk about Final Fantasy VII every time I watch it, because there is so much in depth and there is so many things that fans and even newcomers, I don't know to be honest, I don't know if it's newcomers or just fans that I've criticised, and I want to kind of level the playing field and kind of give my opinion on what's going to happen with what the remake means and what's going to happen in the subsequent parts to come, which we are heavily anticipating and waiting for. I have been since I completed it last month. I haven't platinumed it yet, and I must say the reason why I haven't is the one thing that draws me to this game, and I think I expressed it in my last epic rant I did about this, is the story is fantastic, and I'll play it for the story again and again and again. When it comes to the challenging parts, I'm a bit of a wimp and find it a bit too challenging, so I'll give it a bit of a break. I will go back to it because I do want to complete this game. I do want to complete it in its entirety. But yeah, moving on, what I was saying is the story is so compelling, it's so fantastic, and it is amazing what they did to recreate a game that is, how old is it now? Over 20 years old, which is amazing, to get from one spectrum to another and do it in such an amazing fashion. A lot of skepticism that Final Fantasy VII Remake has is that it's not a true remake, it's not that's a strong word. It's not a thing to do with it being a true remake. It's not the original with a nice next-gen flair to it. And thank God, because the things that Square Enix, or Square Enix, or however you want to pronounce it, the things that they did with this game is genre-defining, and it is a new plateau for Final Fantasy games, I believe. I remember playing, obviously, as I briefed upon, I played a few Final Fantasies. I've played Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy Realm Reborn, which is basically an MMO, as the MMO style of gaming. It's completely different from 7, 8, and 10, which were turn-based, active time battles, that the series was very known for. After them games, I moved on to Final Fantasy 15, and it was a massive shift from what I knew Final Fantasy 4, which was, as I said, the turn-based battle system that I was fond of, and kind of changed it for a more hack and slash style of game. Going into Final Fantasy VII Remake, the developers knew this. They knew that die-hard fans loved the turn-based style of the original, but they had to move on with the times. People weren't really used to turn-based battles and wanted things more in real time, and so that's why they still kept the hack and slash. The amazing thing is they still had both elements in this game. They had the hack and slash, and they had the turn-based style of it. And the way they did it was so fluid. You could be fighting and, basically mowing down enemies, and then when it came to a big battle, or, someone who's much more stronger than the average grunts, you had to think on what to do. And again, what's unique about Final Fantasy games, it chucks enemies at you that aren't just perceptible to getting hit. They have a lot of more defense, or they could be immune to physical damage, and so you have to use magic. And to use magic, it was to fill up that ATB meter, to fill up that active time battle meter, so you could use them sort of abilities, and it didn't distract from the game. It didn't distract from the battle, and it was really, as I said, fluid with how it went into using magics, using magic powers, using special abilities, and it made it look so much more immersive and amazing to do that. I think it structured a battle system that old school fans know, and newcomers will know too, and just blast it off into the future for next installments. I seriously hope that they keep this sort of element of battle in the games to come in the future. I do believe that it is an amazing step forward, and it gives them a massive plateau. I loved that. And a lot of people do. The battle, the gameplay is fantastic. The way that you can get different weapons, but if you want, you can just upgrade the weapons that you had. So they become quite amazing. And throughout, the first playthrough I had Cloud's Buster Sword, because it's iconic. I didn't want to change it. The only thing I used the other weapons for was to get special abilities that it came with. Because after you got a maximum efficiency, you can use it with whatever weapon you had equipped. And as I said, I just maxed out that Buster Sword, and it's the Buster Sword. You can't replace it, to be fair. You can try, but it's the Buster Sword. I replaced other parties' weapons. But again, I think it was to do with like cosmetics. Like some of the weapons looked really cool, so I wanted them to wield that weapon, and I upgraded that weapon mostly. But again, it was to do with stats as well. But again, I kept Cloud with his Buster Sword because it had to be done. I keep saying I talk about. I am talking about it. The amazing thing about the gameplay, and what kind of old school fans criticised, was how the story had a lot of padding. Now I don't agree on that whatsoever. I don't think the story had any padding. I think they had a chance to flesh out this game. They had a chance to flesh out characters that you wouldn't. They didn't think of fleshing out in the original. And that's fantastic because it gives you more of an emotional level to these characters. And these characters were Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge, and the way they develop with you and Cloud, it's amazing. And it was so emotional when all I was doing is basically one of the chapters is you help Jesse out. And doing that was so emotional because I'd never seen it. The original game didn't have that. But it worked so well. It worked so well with the story. And it worked so well for that character. And getting you to have a feel for that character. And I knew why. I knew exactly why they were doing that. My girlfriend was watching it with me. And to her, she's very new to the series, and to her, this was the norm. It was part of the story. It wasn't padding. It wasn't, something added on, because she had never played the original. So this was just story to her. To me, it was the makers, it was the writers, and the directors of the game going, you know what's going to happen. So we're going to make you feel it. We're going to make you feel for these characters before it happens. And it got me. It really did. I was at such an emotional level. I had to stop and, collect myself because I knew what was going to happen to these characters. So when it did happen and, they did get killed, with the tower collapsing on Sector 7, I felt it. I felt the time spent with the characters. It gave it much more of a reason to care for these characters. With the original, you didn't. It was just kind of like, oh my god, no! But with this, it took you a backseat. And that was so amazing to see. The emotional level that they put into the game. Whereas, originally, the original game, it was just part of the story that you went with, and it was only a small part of it. This was a game, and they was going to make this section into a big part of this game. And some people criticise why did they just do the midcar section. It's a bit odd in regards to it, but I believe it's because there was so much story to tell there. With the technology that they have, they can do that story. And that's why it resonates with me to basically say that, to me, Final Fantasy VII Remake is the first in, I hope, a great line of video games. It is the Iron Man of the gaming, of Final Fantasy. I hope. I do sincerely hope, because going into this game, and when you play it, it's so genre defining, as I said, and it's so cinematic and so great at its storytelling that it seems like a movie. I was excited for this game, just like I was excited to see Avengers Endgame. You know, this is the end game of video games, I do believe. This is Avenger level gaming. And that's what's fantastic, because people have been waiting for it. And that's what I mean with Avenger level in gaming, is because over 10 years, you had followed these cast of characters to basically its climax. And backwards, you followed these characters to its completion, and it was so satisfying to see that. And even my son was watching Endgame and was highly emotional towards these characters. And I do believe it's going to be the same for Final Fantasy. I do believe Final Fantasy 7, you know, playing it, I got obviously then flashbacks to playing the original, because I didn't, as I said on my previous rant, I didn't really complete Final Fantasy 7. I did the Midgar section, and so to have a game wholly on the Midgar section, you know, it hit me home. But it also gave me a new experience of these characters, and these fantastic characters, which I will go into. So the game itself is very confusing when you're a newcomer to the game. It can be very confusing, but not in a bad way. I've seen a lot of articles and a lot of reviews basically slating it on the confusion that it could have on new players. These confusions are not confusion at all. It's like giving you clues. You are your own Sherlock Holmes, and this game has given you the clues for you to go ahead with. And it opens up a lot of doors. And that's what this game is. It's kind of like the doors opening. It's, you know, it's, you're stepping into this world for the first time. And there's little bits to the game that die-hard fans will know, like certain flashbacks, certain little scenes that happen, little dialogues that happen, like how Aerith is talking to the planet and how she seems very doomed to it, and a bit sad in regards to it. And you know, as a fan and as people that know of what happens to Aerith later on, you know, with Sephiroth killing her, you know what she's talking about. It's like she knows what's happening, and even though you know what's happening, a new player won't. You know, they won't get it, and so they're going in completely new to it. Whereas you, the fan, are going into it with, you know, some sense of what's going to happen, but again, completely confused. Completely confused because she shouldn't know any of this because it hasn't happened yet. And that's what makes this game so unique. And rewatching Brianna play this game, it kind of resonates that story. And watching and playing this game and watching excuse me, and watching Brianna play it, it kind of shows you what this game is all about. Now, you play as Cloud Strife. But Cloud Strife in this game, and going forward with this game, and what the game's about, that true die-hard fans know of, Cloud Strife is the Watson in this game. I'm making a lot of Sherlock references here, but yeah, Cloud Strife is the Watson in this game. He's the one that is next to the main character. That main character is Aerith, and that's why she is on screen today. Because I do believe that when you're following the story and you follow the dialogues and you follow what's happening and what the game kind of focuses on, Aerith is the centre, is the central mass to it, and that's crazy. When you think of it, that is fantastically crazy. And what's funny is when Nomura was talking about why it's called Final Fantasy VII Remake, he said initially it was so they didn't confuse people. So they didn't think it was a Final Fantasy VII movie, or they didn't think it was something else. So they knew it was a remake of the game. That in itself is a red herring, because he also says that he named it Remake for another reason, which won't be revealed until later on. This boy knows what he's talking about, and a lot of people know what they're talking about. When they played the end of this game, they got to the scene with Sephiroth where he says you have 7 seconds to the end, and people were like, what is this about, what is he on about? And that's the thing, a mystery. It wasn't a mystery for newcomers, it was a mystery for fans as well, and a massive mystery. And this mystery is the mystery of why it's called Remake, and I love it. I love this concept. People theorise that the 7 seconds to the end is in regards to Aerith's death, and it could allude to the matter of fact that you as a player may be able to save Aerith. And that's a big thing. Like, I knew that the second he said it, I was like, that's gotta be it. Because the way the game has kind of alluded to fate, at the end it went massive into fate and how fate have been bending what happens in the story and kind of leading the character in this certain path, and at the end it's kind of fighting that path, and you come out at the other end and the characters now have a choice to make, and that's fantastic. And there was a lot of criticism on the end. I think I briefly touched up on it on my last rant, but I can't quite remember. But there was a lot of scrutiny in regards to it should have ended with them just leaving Midgar. Well, that would have been a silly and lame ending, to be honest, and would have been very bittersweet. The ending that they gave us was true Final Fantasy. It was, it's a Final Fantasy game, you expect the ending to be a massive boss battle, and it was. A lot of another scrutiny was that you fought Sephiroth, which in the original you don't really do until the end, because he is the big bad, and he's the big bad from the get-go. In Chapter 2, fans and newcomers were introduced to Sephiroth, and there's the immortal lines that he states, which is fantastic, and which kind of sets the bar for him being the villain, is when he talks about Cloud's mother. Or you think it's Cloud's mother anyway, you don't really know, it's just talking about some girl. And how he says that you should have heard her plead for your life as she felt cold steel. Wow. First half of this game, you were thinking, oh, Shinra's the big bad, draining the planet's life for energy. This guy is something else. And that's what the story is. It's setting up who the bad guy is. And people were kind of like, why is he in this? They kind of shoehorned him in. Because it's set in Midgar, and so you don't really see Sephiroth in Midgar, so they had to implement him somehow. Yes, they did. And it works so well with the game, and what the game is about. And the theories that people are coming up with in regards to Aerith kind of knowing what's going to happen. I don't think she's in 100%, because there's little dialogues that Aerith does where she isn't fully aware of what's happening. But she kind of knows that, I think because she talks to the planet, she kind of knows her fate. And she knows that challenging the fate is challenging her destiny in a way. And even though she kind of knows what she has to do, you know, she's afraid to do it, and it's prominent throughout the game. She's afraid to do something. When they have little speaking scenes, she's afraid of something like an inevitable doom. And this obviously alludes to, you know, her death and her major influence to the planet and, you know, to the end game. This is probably an amazing thing to do. As I said, Remake is a fantastic title because I believe what Nomura was alluding to is that you're going to remake history. It's not going to be like the original because you can remake it. I hope they give you the choice. I hope they because this game had choices. You know, the way that you can get different dresses by how many quests you did or by what thing you said to Tifa, what outfit you said told her to wear. And again, that, you know, it was choice driven. And there's other cases of this in the game in regards to War Market, where there's choice, where you get two different sets of quests regarding Madam M and I forgot his name. The Chocobo Sam. That's it, Chocobo Sam. And again, you know, there's choices in the game. I believe that's a big thing going forward that will kind of shape your Final Fantasy. I believe that you will be able to save Aerith. And that's fantastic, because the way that the game makes you feel for Aerith, again, as a newcomer, it makes you feel for Aerith for the first time. And for fans of the series who know her fate, it makes you feel for her character. You know the doom that that she's alluding to. You know where the game's going with her. And yet, the game's giving you a choice. This beloved character that you were shocked at when you saw when you saw her getting killed by Sephiroth was major. You know, it's all over the internet of kind of one of the saddest video game moments. And I think it's going to be epic, and I hope they do make it epic in saving her. Because it's kind of like, again, I'm making an example here, but like Endgame. You're going back and you're saving them. And I think it works so well because in the original game, there was a lot of allusions to Aerith carrying on with the party. And this might have been something that was scrapped from the original. You might have been able to save Aerith. Because in regards to artwork on the book, where she sees that, where is Aerith and the High Wind, yet in the game she never sees High Wind, because she dies before you get High Wind. The airship. And then there's also the theory that people are putting forward to near the end, where you all have to stand on plateaus. There's a plateau 3, and people think this plateau is for Aerith, which is fantastic. It means that there was probably something in the game where Aerith survived, that you can get Aerith to survive, because in the original. So yeah, I think that you'll be able to I think the original game, there was a choice to save Aerith, and because in the original game they are them choices. There's some choices where you get characters before other characters, and there's things on that, in the matter of fact that now there is choices in the original, and one of the co-creators, one of the co-directors, was talking about this game is going to be, just like the original. The game is going to follow the storyline of the original game. Now here's the trick question right there. It's going to follow the storyline of the main game, so people are like, okay, so they can't remake it altogether. If it's going to follow the original, then Aerith is going to die. As I just said, the original may have had things scrapped. And I believe that being able to save Aerith was scrapped from the original. I could be wrong, but I do believe that, it's the case in the way that the title is called Final Fantasy VII Remake. You're remaking history, the way that it's alluded to 7 seconds till the end. People allude this to Aerith's death, or people allude this to Meteor, which is the meteorite that's crashing. It's going to crash into Gaia, and it could mean both. You could have 7 seconds to save Aerith. If you don't save Aerith, then the choice becomes that you have 7 seconds to save the planet from Meteor, or vice versa. And I do hope, and I've been thinking about this, I do hope that the way that they left the end of this game, with Zack still being alive, the matter of fact that you was told about the 7 seconds to the end thing, and certain things that are not certain, I hope that it brings choice to the game. What's amazing about Final Fantasy VII Remake, it did things that the original didn't do. So, in most Final Fantasy games, you control a titular character. You control one character. Like the original Final Fantasy VII, you controlled Cloud. And for the most part, you control Cloud in the remake. Final Fantasy VIII was Squall, Final Fantasy X was Tidus, or Tidus. And so on and so forth. Even, Final Fantasy 15, the latest one before this one, you was only controlling Noctis. But this game kind of turned that on its head, where had you controlling different characters for a time. So you had a go at controlling Aerith. You had a go at controlling Tifa. You had a go at controlling Barret. So throughout that game, the main titular characters, you was able to control and have a go walking around with. And I believe and I hope that this is a tester or a taster of what's to come. Because obviously in the original game, they all had their own stories, they all had their own things to do. And I think that that's what's going to be integrated into the other games. I think there's going to be storylines that are character specific, and you're going to be able to control them characters, hopefully. And it's going to give you so much more in-depth feel to that character. Obviously the battles are different. So if you've got a party of it was 3 characters in this game, wasn't it? So you've got a party of 3 characters. Hopefully they'll be able to do all 4 characters, because it'd be kind of a bit weird. Or you can switch it out like they did in Final Fantasy X. I do believe that you can be whoever whoever the game chooses you to be. You can be that character, and then when it goes into battle, you can choose your leader, like you did in Remake. You can choose who you initially start the fight with. regardless of who you control previous. And that's fantastic. So you can easily do that going forward with the other games. I do believe, and when I was talking about either do small games in lesser time or much bigger games which will take longer time. I think what it is, and I hope they do it this way, is they do it kind of like a movie, like episodically. Because I believe that that's the best way. This game, when playing Remake, it was like I was watching a movie. An amazing, like the first Avengers. Again, I'm using the Avengers, because the Avengers, you know, for the most part, are genre defining. And, you know, the first Avengers was massively acclaimed. Never been done before, and a massive spectacle. And people wanted more. And then they had to wait until the next Avengers film. And again, that smashed box offices. You know, it was so amazing. And I hope they do it with the same with this, or in comparison, like Game of Thrones. You had one season. You finished that season, you was waiting and anticipating the next season. And then they did another season, and it was a spectacle then, and so on and so forth. I hope they do it with Final Fantasy, where they have certain parts of the game that they separate. And, you know, it's vital to the story. So, like in this game, you got to know some of the titular characters. You got to know Cloud a little. You got to know Tifa a little. Hell, you got to know about Aerith. And you got to know about Barrett a little bit. In the next game, you know, where they're going to go with it. Whichever place they're going to go with next. Or not even a place, maybe they could make it open world, I don't know. But the story, I hope, focus on of the characters that we have. So, Cloud, Tifa, Aerith and Barrett. And we got, obviously we have Red 13 at the end of that as well. And I hope it goes into the story of Red 13, because he was kind of just there, you know, and you don't really know, you know, what his story is. And hopefully the next game will flesh that out and flesh his story. And hopefully it will flesh out Barrett's story as well, because there was Barrett there and there was his story. We got a lot of story in Remake for Cloud, Aerith and Tifa. We got a lot of story with them. We need more story for Barrett, we need more story for Red 13. The characters that were in this game but didn't really get fleshed out. And hopefully they'll do that for the next one. Hopefully they'll flesh that out in its own little story segment. Again, leading up to something big and Final Fantasy-esque. Again, people believe, and I don't know this to be true, but the next game will put you back to scratch. But back, you know, to what you won't retain what you did in this game, basically. Now, I don't believe that, because in regards to Final Fantasy 15, which Nomura did before this game, they did it in episodes, and the episodes didn't really stop the progress you had made. They added to it. And hopefully with the next installments of Final Fantasy Remake, they will add to it. But people say, you know, how does that make any sense? Because of the way that you've leveled up your characters and the weapons, and, you know, you're probably very OP, you know, overpowered to hell. But I do believe in Midgar, they're very controlled enemies. If you look back to the enemies that you fought, there was either robots or, you know, in soldiers and things like that, and you know, there was big boss battles with big mechs. That again, even if, you know, you were very overpowered, it would still take some time. It wouldn't be, you know, as specific as just hacking away at one soldier and he's down. I hope that the next game you're going forward, you can still do that, because it gives you the power of your character. Your characters are very powerful and very unique, and the things that they've gone through already, you know, should carry on going forward. You know, normal grunts should be nothing to them, but in the wide open world, I believe that there should be pebbles out there that make the player think strategically, and make it a bit more difficult for them to play going forward. And it will still work with what you have, just with, you know, slightly higher leveled enemies. And that's why it's kind of funny people saying that you won't hit your progress, because why are you level 50 then? And I know you can max out your weapons by getting all the manuscripts, but it doesn't mean that, you know, more will not open up in the next one and get your weapons more and more powerful. Because I do believe that, you know, with Final Fantasy VII Remake, the ending with Sephiroth, that you're fighting Sephiroth, fans would say that, you know, that was the end game in a way. I believe that's nothing. It's nothing to do with the end game, and I believe the end game is going to be much harder, much more ingrained. Because when I was fighting Sephiroth, it didn't feel like I was fighting him, if that makes sense. It felt like and, you know, the story kind of alluded to that. That you kind of, it's not him, but kind of like a shadow of him. And I think, you know, the end game will be him, and I think fighting him will not be that easy. So I remember fighting him, and I don't know if I died or if I didn't die, but I did quite well, and I defeated him quite easily, on normal difficulty. So to go into it saying that, you know, that's the end game, how could they kind of improve on it massively? Because again, that was a shadow. In a way, everything that they just faced was a dream sequence, and wasn't the real thing. And that's what it was alluding to. And I believe that when you fight Sephiroth, he's going to be the real thing, and he's going to be 10 times harder than what you faced. And he's going to challenge you, you know, to use your knowledge of what you've learned throughout the games. And it's going to show you that you can't just use hack and slash. You know, it's going to give you, it's going to give you a run for his money. You run for his money, yeah. You run for his money. So that's what's going to happen, I do believe. I don't know, obviously this is all speculation, but I hope they do that. I hope they do make it a spectacle. Because as revisiting Remake, you know, watching Brianna play it, it has become prominent of what's going to happen next and how amazing it's going to be when it does happen. That as a newcomer, it's going to be amazing. You know, it's just you're going to be in for the ride. You know, it's going to be the next movie, in a way, that you're going to be hooked on. This franchise is trying to aim to hook you onto it. Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're remaking Final Fantasy VII for newcomers and fans alike. Fans that are skeptical should know that this is totally Final Fantasy. Yes, the original had you leaving Midgar, and that was the end of it. There was no bad shit insane ending that Remake did. But that's okay, because this game needed it. It's a standalone game, and it makes so much sense to have that epic part. Because the game itself, is, will go, its normal route if they just left. The Fates would have got what they wanted. They would have killed off Biggs. They would have killed off Jesse, like they did, and you would have, basically gone about the original game. But it's not Final Fantasy VII Remastered. It's Final Fantasy VII Remake. And so to challenge Fate is to challenge the original game and, make the experiences for the next installments your own. And I believe it's going to be fantastic. The way they make you feel for Aerith in this game is overwhelming. The dialogue that you get with her, the story that's jumped at you about this flower girl is emotional and heartbreaking. So that when you get to that pivotal moment that all fans know of, and newcomers will know when it comes to it, you have a choice. You can save this amazing person who does anything for anyone, who is willing to sacrifice her own life for the sake of the planet and for the sake of the people that live in it. You get to save her, and I hope they make it so epic. I hope they make it fantastic and so emotionally hyped. I hope that you save her and a big massive action sequence with all the characters happen, and kind of has this sort of like cataclysmic moment for the game where it changes it on its head. And I hope they do that with a lot of things. Like with the ending when you see Zack carrying Cloud, it can be very confusing in a way. I believe it's kind of like an alternate timeline that, again, I think the player will be able to play out. I think that it's kind of showing that choice-driven narrative of roleplay. It's a role-playing game at the end of the day, and I believe it's going to lean into that. It's going to lean into that choice-based system that will dramatically change the game and what happens in the game. Hopefully, being able to survive as Zack will mean that he will be able to reunite with Aerith. That is amazing. That is adorable. And certain things like that. And it just means, obviously, that you may have Zack going into the end game. Because Zack became a fan favourite. Not from the original, but from the sequels, like he was in Advent Children, the movie, and he also was in Crisis Core as the main character, and people kind of became fond of this character. And again, this is another thing that I learned recently in watching Brianna. There's a scene where Cloud is talking to Aerith in the playground, and Cloud goes, because Cloud says obviously he was in Soldier, and Aerith said she loved someone from Soldier, and Cloud goes, "What's his name? I might have known him." And when she says that, when she says his name, he has flashbacks. But the audience, obviously diehard fans know what she said. Newcomers don't. They don't have a clue. who she's talking about. Cloud's just, it's gone weird in the most unopportune moment when she was about to reveal the name of her soldier boyfriend. And that's fantastic because it kind of shows you again a choice that you'll be able to make, that you may go back to that scene that you had in this game and tell you who she said. And again, I think that's got that's going to be a big thing going forward. There's a few things I want to address. Is the way I see the characters, and a lot of people will put Cloud and Aerith as a partnership. And there's one scene in the game that kind of alludes to them caring for each other. But I do hope with Cloud and the way that he is towards Aerith, it's kind of like, he's her guardian. Now think of what that means, he's her guardian. And the way that the story kind of develops on that, her mother basically doesn't want any harm to come to her. And Cloud wants to save her, from Shinra. He wants to go and save her, because he's her guardian. In modern times, a guardian is someone who has taken legal ownership of a child, taken guardianship of them, to look after them. I'm not saying that Cloud sees Aerith as his own daughter, but I think he sees that sort of connection. He's got that connection with her where he met her and she gave him a flower for no reason. And Cloud is, even though he puts on this persona that he's stoic and doesn't care about anything and whatnot, deep down he has these feelings, and the only reason why he acts the way he acts is because he's a soldier, or ex-soldier now. But he's been brought up, to be this badass guy. So he's gonna be that. He's gonna be this badass guy. But deep down, his the care that he has for people is undeniable. He meets this girl who's going a bit weird, and she gives him a flower. For no apparent reason, just gives him a flower. And it's like, okay, that's great, thank you. And then, with this flower, later on he meets Tifa in Sector 7, and without a prompt or anything, he gives that flower to Tifa. And him and Tifa go way back. The childhood best friends, and probably more. And throughout the game, people are asking Cloud, who's this girl? Who did you give the flower to? Who's Tifa? What's the deal with you and Tifa? And Cloud is then back to a corner where he's like, I really care for her, but I don't know how she sees me. And it's kind of like, I've always had that care for her, and a big part of the story is that he sits with her at the bar and she doesn't know, she feels like she's, what was it now? Trapped. Or something like that. I can't quite remember. And later on, there's a flashback where Cloud says to Tifa that she ever feels trapped, to call upon him. And he'll be there. And that's when you have a scene with Tifa after that, and he's going, I'm going to be there for you. You feel trapped? I'm here. And that, to me, is the care of someone that truly loves you. So Cloud will never say that Tifa's his girlfriend, because obviously, it's up to Tifa, it's not up to him. And he truly loves her, that he will, he won't say that, he's her boyfriend, because, he has more respect for her to, kind of have, probably a moment with her where they both can decide that instead of just him. And I hope they do that in the following games. I hope they kind of hash out Cloud and his relationships. As I said, with Aerith, it's kind of a guardianship. He will protect her, and in some cases, like in the original game, he cared for her and he didn't know why. It kind of like became apparent that he was sharing memories with Zack, her soldier boyfriend, and there was kind of like that. And I think that's ingrained as well in this game, that Cloud has a special bond with Zack, and Zack in turn has a special bond with Aerith, and Zack's imbued his memories in Cloud, so then he sees Aerith as someone that he should care about, unbeknownst to him why. And that's an amazing plot element, and so, as again, I'll call this so Final Fantasy-esque. It's the most Final Fantasy game I've ever kind of witnessed. The bad shit insanity of it. And it's been good to see how these characters develop. Obviously these are my thoughts. Tell me what you think of these characters and what they're going to be like going forward. What the games are going to be like going forward, because I do hope it is going to be a spectacle. I do hope it's going to be fantastic. I hope they add more things into it, because yes, there is potential there. As I said, for storylines, specific to Aerith or Barret or Tifa, or even Red. It'd be awesome to play as Red. And I know that people have modded Final Fantasy VII Remake recently, where you can actually play as Red 13. And that makes you think, if that's in the game, well. So yeah, I do hope that they do it justice for the next one. I'm, waiting in heavy anticipation what they do, and regardless of what they do with it, I'm gonna love it and cherish it, because you've set me up now. You've set me up, Square Enix, with Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't think you're gonna disappoint regardless. You could give me a pile of shit on a plate and say it's Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, and I go, yes, fantastic. Great this. But yeah, this game has got so much depth. If you've got it and if you've played it, play it again. Go through the story, analyse what they're getting at with the story. If you were skeptical at first, go back, replay it. With what I've said, you can kind of see where they're going with it, and I hope they follow through with it, and they don't just follow Final Fantasy VII, because that will be quite lame. If I wanted to play the original game, I would play the original game. It's still a standout game. It's just not, it's just not got the graphics that you get nowadays. And if that's what you wanted, this game probably would have been made for the PS3. And thank God that they didn't release it for the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3, and they've kind of waited for the perfect time. How it looks, just the cutscenes, just how it looks, is just like fantastic, next level. There's even there's critics out there even like criticizing how it looks, like sometimes things don't render. I do believe that's something to do with the PlayStation 4. I do believe that the Square Enix is working on a high-end engine with Final Fantasy VII. I think they're working on the latest Unreal Engine. I know a little bit of in regards to game design and game engines, so I know that they were using, I'm guessing, the high-end Unreal Engine that was released, and so going forward they'll update it, and they'll hopefully update for the next generation consoles, so like the PlayStation 5. I don't know what they're doing in regards to other consoles. They will eventually probably release it in other consoles. But if you haven't got a PlayStation 4, get one. I don't know why you haven't got one. If you've got an Xbox, then you signed up for the wrong one. I'm joking. But yeah, PlayStation. I have got a big heads up on some amazing games. If you don't have a PlayStation, try and get one. You won't be disappointed. And you won't be disappointed in regards to any of the games that's on it. So yeah, I believe like when it comes to the graphics and things not rendering properly on a PC, I believe that will probably render fantastically. I don't think there'll be any problem. The way that the faces move can look a bit silly at times, but it doesn't break the immersion of the game. It's not game breaking in the slightest. When you look at Cloud, when you're walking around with the characters, and the faces just look amazing. Like they actually blink and they actually like just look real, and it's so fantastic to see that in a video game, to see the amount of detail that they have on the characters. I remember just walking around and just looking at the settings, looking at what the places look like and the little details that they've put to it. And there's so much detail in it. And then you look at the characters and there's so much detail to them. Like I was looking about a week back, I was looking to find a jacket for my girlfriend that looks like Aerith's, and there's nothing like it. And I was analysing jackets that were like it, and comparing it to the jacket in game, and I was like, well, it's like this, it's kind of like leathery and a bit, it's like hard cloth. I won't say leather, it's like hard cloth, like denim in a way, like red denim. And it just looks so cool. I think it's not as harsh as denim. I think it's a little bit softer than denim. Yeah, you just look at them, and then like I saw a cosplay costume for Tifa, and they just kind of give her red boots, and I'm like, no. The boots that she wears are kind of like they're really cool, unique boots. They kind of look like they're made from from I don't know, anything for shoemaker that would make them sort of shoes. They're kind of like basketball shoes, kind of like Converse shoes in a way. But they're so unique in design and so cool. And yeah, just all the characters, the way Cloud looks, is so cool. Like I've seen cosplay of that, and they do it wrong. Like all he's got really is a sleeveless cardigan, with a metal shoulder guard, a belt, kind of like a support belt, like a training belt, and his trousers are kind of like baggy trousers, but not. They don't, flare out at the bottom. Kind of like they go in at the bottom. And I'm here analysing their clothes. But it's because of the details that they put into the game. It's fantastic. And it's great to see the amount of work and the amount of effort that's been put into it. So yeah, this has been another epic rant about Final Fantasy VII Remake. As I said, with a few spoilers in there. I just wanted to do this again to kind of give it some justice. Because I know that there's people out there like, skeptic on it. And I'm like, how? And I also want to promote how the game kind of emotionally attaches itself to you, and it emotionally attached itself to me, and I hope going forward that these attachments that they've put on me, I can bring to justice. What I'm trying to say is that for the next game, or next few games, I hope it gets to the point where I get to save Aerith, and have her in my party, because to lose a character like that would be devastating. It was devastating to have them scenes with Biggs and Jesse, and it would be heartbreaking to have them scenes with any other character that might have the same circumstances. And that's what I want to express. The hopes I want going forward, as well as what was amazing about the game. By far, the best game of this generation, and by far the best game I've played. And as I said, I've played a lot of games, and I've put so much hours into games that I love. For this game, it's at the top, and it'll keep there until, I don't know what can top it. Let's see what the sequels do. But thank you for listening to my epic rant. Hopefully I didn't bore you to death with another Final Fantasy rant. The next one I promise will be different. But please tell me what your opinions are. Leave a comment. Or just, if you want to talk about what your thoughts are on the game, then please, again, leave a comment. And I'll respond to it. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.